네, 총괄 본부장님의 강연 흥미롭게 잘 들었습니다. 고맙습니다. 네, 강연에 이어 두 번째 강연을 맡아주실 잭 웡 아시아 규제 전문가 협회 설립자님을 여러분께 소개해드리도록 하겠습니다. 잭 웡님께서는 아시안 Regulatory System Overview and Practical Tips에 대해서 강연을 준비해 주셨습니다. 잭 웡 아시아 규제 전문가 협회 설립자님의 강연 지금부터 함께 시청하시겠습니다.
Hello, welcome to ARPA channel. I'm Jack, the founder of ARPA. This webinar is a global expansion strategy for pharmaceutical companies. The presentation is prepared by Asia Regulatory Professional Associations. The topics today will be Asia Regulatory System Overview and Practical Tips. Before we start, we would like to introduce some important organizations. Most of you may know ICH, International Conference of Harmonization. This is a very important organization for pharmaceutical industries that you can work with many industry experts and regulators to discuss and harmonize regulations of pharmaceuticals regulatory. Another one is DIA, Drug Information Association. They have a lot of network there that you can learn many regulatory systems from different experts. Most of you may agree regulatory is very important. Do you know it impacts which part of your business? Pharmaceutical industries is a very highly regulated business. Every step has a regulation. In the clinical trial, when you do product registrations, when you do importation, etc. So regulatory is critical to your business success. For you to do registration in Asia, the first step is to determine what is your product. And of course, you need to look at the definition of a medical device or pharmaceutical so that you know your product fall into which category. And most of you may know, oh, I already know my product is a pharmaceutical already. So I'm pretty sure about that. But the thing is, this is still the very first important step because if you're a drug, you will go for the drug pathway. If a medical device, will be a very different pathway. And it's an important decision, because sometimes your product to have a chance to classify very differently. And that's why it's still good to know about the definition of medical device or pharmaceutical. So in this slide, you can see a formal definition of medical device in the middle. And I would like to simplify is if your product have a medical use, and it depends on how it functions, it could be medical device or pharmaceutical. On this slide, I want to show is if your product have medical use and your physical mechanical function, then it could be medical device. On this slide, you can see the definition of pharmaceuticals. And the easy way to know about it is you have a medical use, plus it must be functioned by chemical or pharmacological ways. So in summary, how you know your product is a drug or device is very easy. Number one, you have a medical use, and then depends of how it functions, either physical or chemical pharmacological, then you know the product is drug or device in that country. In this slide, I want to use alcohol wipes as an example. You know a tissue paper with alcohol inside. What do you think? Is it a drug or medical device? Here's the answer, and you may find it quite interesting. It could be a pharmaceutical product if this product used to clean a wound because it has a pharmacological action with a human body. It could be a medical device if you use to clean surgical instrument because you don't have pharmacological action with human body, but they still have medical use and also physical mechanical function. Or it can be a household product. If you use it to clean a floor or window like that, because you actually don't have medical use at all, so it's not a medical device, not a pharmaceutical. So you can see this is one of the great example that you actually can be quite creative to determine your product classification. And because of different classification, your product can launch in Asia in different pathway, in different speed, and even different documentation, like this example. So I want you to feel the power of the regulatory, not always think, oh, I only have one pathway, only one way to do your product registrations, like that. Another example I want to show you is a vaccine. Look at this product. I believe you may see that before. It's a prefilled syringe. You can see there's a vaccine which is classified as a drug, and then there's a syringe which is classified as a device. If the prefilled vaccine syringe, what do you think when they combine together? Is it drug or device? Normally, we describe this product as a combination product, drug and device combined together. And the first factor we normally look at is who has the primary function. In this case, most of the government will classify this product as a drug because the primary function is the vaccine. And hence the combination product is a drug because vaccine is a drug. Okay, so this is one learning. But actually another learning I want you to learn from this example is when you combine these two products together, actually your registration is quicker, maybe simpler, because if you combine together, you only have one registration, which is drug registrations. But if you separate your product, like the vial, a syringe and vial separately, then you have two registrations. One is for your vaccine in a vial, and then the second one is your syringe. And that's why you can see more and more companies now, they will combine their product and make it as a one registration for a quicker registration approval. But please understand, you still need to submit the application for the device and the drug, the technical data. But the review, they will simplify and combine together. That may be still considered quicker. Then there's a step 2 for your registrations. After you know your product is a drug, for example, then you need to know your product is a generic or new chemical entity. So that again, you follow different registration, documentation, timeline, requirement like that. And of course, one of the obvious way to know your product is generic or new chemical entity is to see any originator product already in your market. And then you can check with the government website. I put one of it here as an example in Hong Kong. And then if no, then your product can be registered as a new drug because the originator is not there. And if it's yes, then your product could be registered as a generic drug. But please understand, any government website may not up to date. So you may still want to check with the government if the website did not show all the information. And then the next question is, does your product have new indication? Because your chemical could be not new, but the use of your product is a new way with a new indication. Then in this case, it could be still treated as a new chemical entity. The next question you need to ask is, do your product manufacture in a PICS member country or economy? Because this is a new requirement in terms of your GMP requirement in a lot of countries now. So GMP may be not enough. You need to PICS GMP. So if yes, then that's good. You can, register in that country. But if no, then you need to check whether your manufacturing site has been inspected and found satisfactory by PICS member, country or economy. If not, is the manufacturer ready to be inspected? For example, in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Drug Office inspector can inspect and then give you a PICS related approval. So there's a link you can see in the web page, a slide here, that you can see the list of participating authorities who are the PICS member. The next step is to gather your product registration documentation. Actually, in our association, you can check product registration requirement for medical device, and you can go to our website here, the asiaregulatory.com, and you can click the database, enter the information, and then you can get the medical device registration requirement database. Of course, you may want to know the registration requirement of pharmaceutical products. And please feel free to contact us. You got our website, my contact email. Our association are happy to provide you basic registration requirement in different countries. And here in this slide, we summarize different part of a key documentation requirement of pharmaceutical you may want to know. Here are some tips our association want to share with you when company doing registration in Asia. And this is the first questions a lot of people may ask is, what if I don't have the document government want? Sometimes it could be a test report, sometimes it's a specific clinical data, sometimes it could be a certificate on something like that. So there's still a lot of document maybe you don't have. But one thing I really want you to understand about the success of getting the product registrations is not about what document you have. It's more about how you can fulfill the three most important criteria of registration approval. I mentioned here the safety, efficacy, and quality of your product. And the written in many countries regulation said that if you fulfill these three criteria, you will able to get approval. No country regulation will say you must have a test report on something. You must have a data on something. As long as you can prove your product can meet these three criteria, the government will give you approval. So what it means is, if you don't have a particular test report to prove maybe your safety, if you can provide a justification that you can prove your safety, the same safety, you were able to waive that document. So this three keyword is the most important, not that particular report. So you can see this is a very powerful slide that provide you justification or reason that why your product should get approval. And if you don't have any documentation or some of the documentation, why they still can allow you to get approval. Imagine a very interesting case. Your product may be not safe enough, don't have a lot of clinical data, but you prove to have some efficacy maybe on COVID-19. Government will not force you must do a test report, must do something so that they allow you to sell the product. Because they will evaluate your product based on these three criteria, and they think if your product can do COVID-19 thing, then that's good. I assess three criteria already. I think our country need that. So I will still give you approval and allow you to sell your product in my countries. So it's a very important three criteria that's subject to a lot of interpretation, and I highly recommend company really make use of these three criteria. And when you do negotiation or discussion with government officials, this will be the most important three criteria you can use. The next important tips is about stability data. I think you should aware that when you register your product in different countries, they will have different stability testing condition you need to follow. Some countries zone 3, some countries zone 4, depends on their temperature and humidity in the countries. On this slide, you can see, this is one of the example of a testing condition you are required, for example, register in Hong Kong. This is the temperature and the relative humidity. And then they will also say for semi-permeable container, what's the conditions and what's the accelerated data conditions. But stability data is very expensive and take a long time to do. What if you only have Korea stability data and you don't meet this particular testing condition in terms of temperature and humidity, and you don't really want to do it again? What can you do? Can you still able to register in other countries? From our regulatory experience, we see a lot of interesting approach that company still able to use their Korea testing condition of the stability data and apply to other countries. For example, if your testing temperature is lower than 30 degrees, you may want to tell the regulator that you will store your product in a refrigerator, for example, 2 to 8 degrees. So your testing condition in terms of temperature will not need to be followed. So that will be an interesting angle to solve the storage temperature challenge. But how about relative humidity? For example, Korea is very low and the country require higher relative humidity. One interesting tips I see in other country or company they do is they use glass bottle, totally not permeable container to store your top product, so that the relative humidity is not relevant anymore, because your glass bottle, no water can go in and go out, and that's why my storage condition is stable in terms of relative humidity, so you can ignore the RH requirement in the stability data. So you can see there's a lot of interesting exemption that you may want to aware. And of course, feel free to contact us if you need more example or some guidance as well. The last tips I want to share with team is a very interesting slide, which is about how to exempt from product registrations. Sometimes maybe you want to start using your product in a market, but there's actually some way you can start using your product, but you don't need to do product registrations for good reason. Number one is a compassionate use. What I mean is maybe there's a doctor in a particular country, they really want to use your product and they want to use for their specific patient only. There's a procedure to import the product like this for a specific patient usage. Of course, you can import your product to do clinical trial. Sometimes you can import your product into a country for the reason to export to other countries. So you can have a way to import as well. And then of course, in some case situation, you may import your product as a raw material to manufacture other product. So for the third and fourth case, you still allow and legally to import your product into that country. So just a few examples that maybe you want to aware. And actually the compassionate use is the most common way that a lot of company try to start using their product in a market. And if you need more detail, feel free to contact our association. We may be able to advise you the procedure and how to do it. And actually, there's a lot of doctors really need this way to start using some very innovative product for their patient. And the procedure is not that difficult. And the approval time is only within 1 week or maximum 2 weeks. So it's a very, efficient and popular way. I want you to aware. And then of course, clinical trial. If you are not launching your product, but you still want patients start using it, you need to apply a clinical trial certificate. In that case, you can legally import your product and start using on human with a proper protocol and data monitoring system as well. So that one is another very popular option. Thank you. Lastly, I want to take some minutes to introduce our association, Asia Regulatory Professional Association. We established on 1st of January 2010, so this year is our 10th anniversary already. Up until now, we have about 4,900 members now, and we are here to raise the standard and social recognition of regulatory professionals in Asia. And you can see our LinkedIn page, our email, and also our website. And joining us as a member is free of charge. So I highly recommend, any participant here interested to be part of this regulatory committee to learn from each other or even ask some questions. Feel free to go to our website and register as a free member. In LPA, we also have publications. That is something I also want to ask for any company who are interested to write an article for us. You can contact us. Here you can see a handbook of regulatory, which is our second edition now, and we use it to teach in university at the moment. And again, if you have any interesting article, contribution you want to us to consider for our third edition, please feel free to let me know. ALPA also do education a lot. We are teaching in 9 universities in Asia using our standard regulatory training and also the textbook in different countries. And if you are interested to be our guest speaker, feel free to also let us know. We are happy to partner with you as well. We are also actively providing training to government officials. You can see in this picture, we are teaching in Thai FDA. We also teach in Taiwan FDA together with university. And also in Malaysia. Here's another example. We also teach in Vietnam as well. Thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you found our sharing helpful and some tips you may want to consider. Feel free to join us for the free membership and get more regulatory training and news. Thank you.